All right, so we're here to the final countdown to submitting the research essays. I will mention that I know several of you have already turned in your essays. I'll start with the early grading here soon, so those of you who are trying to make a run to the finish can go ahead and do that. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about argument. I'm going to talk about some revision strategies. I'm going to do a quick review on sentence structure issues, and then I'm going to talk about what we have coming up next in the final 2 weeks that we have together after the research essay. So if you're here for just the kind of last minute research paper stuff, I'll let you know when you can cut out. If you are here for the things to get ready for as we wrap up the semester, I will you can stay till the end, or you can come back and get that last part of the video, but I wanted to go ahead and get everything in. So first off, let's talk about argument a little bit. I know you've had some readings on it. I've talked about it a little bit, but here's some kind of things to think about as you are working with your argument in these last days before you turn in your research essay. I know some of you are looking back at your argument, thinking of ways to make it stronger, thinking of ways to make it work. Remember, of course, to avoid fallacies, avoiding, slippery slope arguments, the idea that just correlation equals causation, that just because two things happen at the same time, there's proof. Remember that you've got to connect your ideas. You've got to show how one thing leads logically to the next thing. And so one of the things that I also want you to think about, remember that most issues have a continuum. Many of the issues that you all are working with for these essays have a continuum. So there are people who are really strong on both ends of the spectrum, but there's a whole lot of people in the middle. So if you're all the way over here, you may not be able to get to somebody who's so far that you can't see my hand's still on the screen. You are probably going to have more success with somebody who's here in the middle, not all the way on the other side. And that's okay. You don't necessarily have to go out and convince everybody. You don't have to convince the people who are all the way over here and are never going to agree with you. Think about what you can do to get those folks in the middle, or the folks who are not all the way on the other side yet, to come over to your side. One of the ways that you can do that is to find common ground. And we've talked a bit about understanding your opposition, making sure that you fully get why people believe what they believe, the ones who disagree with you, the ones who are on another side, who don't see this issue the way that you do. That's one of the reasons we did that position paper, was to make sure that everybody really dug into both sides and understood the reasonings, the evidence, if there is some. I know sometimes people feel a certain way because of feelings and not necessarily because of evidence. You've got to understand that other side. And a lot of times you can find some common ground with them. An example that I love to use, let's say that a student in English 111 comes to me and says, I'm dropping this class. I don't need to do a research paper. I don't need to know how to do this stuff. I'm out. And so I talk to the student and I say, hey, do you want to transfer to a university? And the student says, yeah. They said, but I'm not going to be an English major. I'm not going to need this stuff. There are a few things that I could say, knowing that they want to transfer. I could point out that they're going to have to take an English 111 type course in order to move on in their studies. I could point out that they're going to have to do some kind of research essays when they get there. I could also just point out they're going to have to submit an application, and they're going to have to write well. They're going to have to do some sort of an entrance essay, that they're going to have to be able to present themselves well in the application, and the skills that we learn in English 111 translate to that. So I may not convince the student that what we're doing in this class is important, but I could still convince the student that they need the class. So think about where you can find some common ground with your opposition. Even if you feel like you're polar opposites, there are typically things that we agree on, and sometimes you can look into the reasons that the person might disagree with you and find something there that you all can agree on as a way to walk them back into giving your argument some consideration. Now, I've seen a lot of great drafts in the last few days of student conferences. I've seen some drafts that still need some work in these days of student conferences. That's fine. You still got a couple days. Remember, these are due on Thursday night at 11:59 p.m. to the assignment link and the Turnitin link. So let's talk about some revision strategies. Let me pull up. I have a couple of slides here. So first of all, focus on higher level concerns as you revise. Students often want to go for sentence errors and wording and punctuation and worrying about grammar. Focus on the content first. Make sure that you have met the assignment guidelines. It is a good idea to go back to the research essay assignment now. Look at all of the stuff that's on there. Remember that source use is a major part of this essay. Make sure that you're quoting, that you have your block quote included, that you're integrating the quotations into your text, that you don't have any quotes hanging out by themselves in a sentence. Make sure that you've paraphrased at least twice and that those are good paraphrases. It's a good idea to go check against the source material. Make sure that you have fully changed the sentence structure and that you're fully putting these ideas in your own words. Make sure that your citations are correct. Check that works cited. Make sure your in-text citations are present and correct. Make sure that everything on the works cited page is cited somewhere in your paper, and every in-text citation links back to a works cited entry on that works cited page. Look back at your organization, make sure everything is smooth, make sure it flows. A recommendation that I have too, if you're concerned about your organization, is doing what we call a reverse outline. A reverse outline is exactly what it sounds like. You look at your paper and you outline what you've actually written. So you may have deviated from the outline that you turned in, and that is absolutely fine. Remember, the outline is a plan. It's not set in stone. You may get into writing your paper and go, you know, this feels like it should go up here. Ooh, or maybe I should combine these 2 points. Or gosh, you know, I've had a lot to say here. I think these are really separate issues that I need to break out. That's okay. But you can go through and outline from what you've written. Another strategy that can be really helpful if you're having organization issues is color coding. In Word or Google Docs or probably any program that you're working with, you can go through and highlight text based on the points. I've done this with some of you in the essay conferences where there have been organization issues. We've gone into a paragraph and said, you're talking about this concept here. We highlight that in pink. You're talking about this concept here that's different. We highlight that in green. Go through some paragraphs and do that, and then you'll figure out, hey, I need to move this stuff around. It's similar to what we did with coding notes to the outline, but more visible. And so you'll be able to see that. So those are a couple of ways that you can look at organization. And then, of course, look at your argument. Is it compelling? Take it to somebody else and talk to them about it or have them read it. See what they think about it. The next level concerns after your content, looking at sentence structure, so run-ons, fragments, mixed constructions. Sometimes you might start with a statement and it turns into a question, or you start with a question and it turns into a statement, or maybe you've got parts of sentences smashed together that don't really fit grammatically. Look back at that. Make sure your writing is clear. Make sure that pronoun references are clear. Make sure that your pronouns and antecedents agree. Make sure you have good subject-verb agreement. And then there's those polishing areas, making sure that your writing stays formal, that you're avoiding contractions, that you are staying in third person wherever possible, that instead of saying kids, you're saying children, that you're not using kind of shorthand like we do in informal communication. Make sure that you're varying your sentence structure. Having a bunch of short subject, verb, object sentences can make your writing sound really choppy like that. But if you take short sentences and sprinkle those in with longer sentences and you have good transitions in there, that can help the writing flow. Also focus on punctuation issues. So maybe if you know commas are a sticking point for you, you could go back and make sure that your commas are in the right places, that you have commas where you need them, that you take them out where you don't. But remember, focus on the content, then those mid-level concerns, and then the polishing, okay? So another point that people have asked for some review on is sentence structure. So let me pull up a couple of sentence structure oh, I thought I had some, okay, I don't have slides on that. We'll just go to this one. We'll just go to, whoops, shoot. Sorry, having trouble with my slide. All right, so to go back and review, what makes a sentence? To have a complete sentence, you need a subject, you need a verb, and it needs to be a complete thought. Some of the main errors that I see are fragments. A fragment is incomplete for whatever reason. It could be because you're missing a verb, you're missing a subject, or it could be because the thought is incomplete. You may remember that earlier in the semester, I gave some examples with Bubba. Bubba left. Bubba left is a complete sentence. It doesn't tell us much, but we have a subject, Bubba. We have a verb, left. We know what happened, Bubba left. Now, if you come in and you add a word to the beginning like after, and you say after Bubba left, suddenly we have an incomplete thought, and this becomes a sentence fragment. A common type of sentence fragment is a dependent clause, or you may have heard it called a subordinate clause, that needs to lean on a complete sentence. This happens pretty frequently when we're drafting because we're jotting down thoughts that may not be fully formed. If you look around your sentence fragments, you may find that they just need to be connected to a complete sentence. If you put a dependent clause at the beginning of the sentence, you would use a comma afterward. After Bubba left, the party ended. So the party ended is a complete sentence that tells us what happens after Bubba left. If you reversed these, the party ended after Bubba left, you would not need the comma. Another issue that I see a lot in these research papers are comma splices. Remember that a comma is not enough to hold two complete sentences together. You need a comma and a coordinating conjunction, or you can often use a semicolon to adjust a comma splice, because a comma splice probably happened because you're continuing that thought. You've got a complete sentence coming after it, but you just didn't join them properly. So often a semicolon will work well there. I will mention that students tend to be kind of afraid of semicolons. A semicolon is stronger than a comma. It can join those complete thoughts. You don't want to use them all the time. I do love semicolons. I probably use them too much. They do become noticeable if you use them, you know, for sentences, several sentences in a row. So be judicious in the usage, but a semicolon is often a great way to fix those. You can use a comma and a coordinating conjunction. You may remember coordinating conjunctions as fanboys, for and, nor, but, or, yet, so. If you use a coordinating conjunction to hold two complete sentences together, make sure that comma's there. However, I don't want to make you so paranoid that you start putting commas before every time you say and or but, because they're not always working as a coordinating conjunction. These words have other jobs to do. But run-ons and fragments are the two main things that I see in these essays, and usually it's the run-ons because you were drafting and you were in the groove and then you just didn't catch it in your revision. I will remind you that the Writing and Reading Center and Online Writing Lab requirements are in place. I've gotten verification from a few of you that you have completed that. Many of you have not. This is crunch time, so there is probably a wait if you're submitting your essay now. That it can take a couple days. When they get really backed up, it can take longer. And you know, everybody has their research papers coming due about right now. So if you still have questions about sentence structure, definitely let me know. Feel free to email me. If there's something you want me to talk about more in depth in a video, I'm glad to do it. So of course, the question burning on everyone's mind is what's next? We've done the research paper. That's the big project. What's going on? So I opened up the last two folders in Blackboard today. What we have coming up next for next week, we have a research essay reflection journal. You can begin on that as soon as you turn in your essay. The other piece is the revision plan. You, of course, are going to need your essay back before you can start your revision plan. So those of you who are hustling to get your work finished and submit research essays early, you, of course, will have your essay graded quickly and can get started on the revision plan. There's also a checkpoint. All of that work is due next Thursday. The final assignment for the semester is your final portfolio. The final portfolio asks you to revise your research paper. If you get a 95 or better on your research paper, you won't have to revise it though, so one more reminder to do really well on this paper. You will also submit a properly formatted journal, an MLA formatted document that discusses your progress this semester. If you think you improved, if you don't think you improved, why you think that is. So those are the two pieces of the final portfolio, the revision and the journal. The revision will be submitted to an assignment link and a Turnitin link, but that Turnitin link won't be available until the research essays are all graded. You'll see it appear in the week 16 folder when it's time. So that is the rundown for right now. If you have questions, if you need help, definitely get in touch. So I hope this goes well for everyone. I hope you're excited to be wrapping up. If I can help, please let me know.